Hello, welcome back. In the last video, we explored sensing and collision detection. In this video, we are going to learn one of the most important and powerful concepts in all of programming called functions. Now, you might hear the word procedures in other programming languages referring to functions, but in Scratch, we know them as custom blocks or my blocks. Why do we need functions in our program? Let's find out by opening our previous calculator app. Alright, so I have Scratch opened on my browser and I'm going to load the calculator app we built in the previous video. Now, if you are wondering which calculator app I'm talking about, it means you skipped that video and you need to go back and watch it so you can follow along with this video. I'm going to click File and click Load from your computer. And I'm going to load the calculator app, and I hope you saved it. If you did not save it, it means you have to rebuild this again. So I'll click open to load it on my browser, and here we have our calculator. So let's do some quick testing. 7 plus 8 and click equal to, and gives us the correct value 15. Now our calculator is working fine, but we can improve on the logic. If I go to number 8, you can see that we are repeating the same logic we have for number 7 and likewise number 9. So each number is right. Now this is where function comes in. Functions help us to stop code repetition. So we can define this logic we have here and this logic we have here as a recipe and use that recipe anytime we want to calculate a number. Let's go ahead and do that. So I'm going to use number 7 as the sprite where I'll keep my recipe, and we're going to call that recipe from the other sprite. Let's go to my blocks and let's create a function. Let's go to make a block, and I'm going to call this function calculate input. Let's just say in 1 or short, and click OK. Now the reason why I have calculate in 1 here is because each of this logic here handles different inputs. So if I clear the calculator and click 7 and say plus, 7 is input 1, and if I click another number, that will now be input 2. So whatever is in the first box, 1 and second box, even though there are 2 numbers, is input 2. I'm going to clear this. So we are going to have 2 functions, one for input 1 and another one for input 2. Now in functions, we can take in parameters and arguments. So we are going to create some arguments and parameters that we are going to accept when defining our function and that we are going to accept when calling our function. And we are going to see the difference between a parameter and an argument just in a second. So we need some parameters. We need this condition, this first condition here as a parameter. We need the second condition here as a parameter. We need in1 as a parameter, and we need costume name as a parameter, and you'll see why we need them as a parameter. So let's go to my block and right click on this calculate in1 function, edit it, and we're going to create those parameters. So let's create a condition and let's call this condition condition1, and we need another condition and we're going to call it condition2. We also need a number or a text input. Let's click and we're going to call this in1, and for the costume name we're going to just say costume name. Now let's click OK. So I've created all the parameters we need for this function. Now I'm going to make the stage small so we have more space. So I'm going to detach the if statement from this right click event, and I'm going to attach the if statement to this define block where we are defining our recipe, which is our function. Now we need to call this function. So I'm also going to detach this and use this right click event here to call the function. Let's drag this function and place it in here. So when we are calling a function like we are doing right here, anything we accept is called an argument. But when we are defining the function, anything we accept are parameters. So let's start by accepting the arguments first, and we are going to accept the parameters. So I'm going to take this condition and put it in condition 1. We have to follow the order in which we created it. So let's take this condition 2, put it in here, and I'm going to scroll to the side, and let's take in 1. Let's take this in 1 here, put it in here, and let's take costume name and put it in here. So you want to make sure you don't miss any of these parameters or arguments. So you might hear me use the word interchangeably, but when you are calling a function, they are called arguments. Alright, so now we have to pass in those parameters. Let's pass in condition 1 here, and it's going to replace whatever we place in here for condition 1 for our code. So you see how it's dynamic. Then we are going to remove this and take in costume name. Also need in 1 here, so in 1 here, and also need costume name here. Let's remove this one. So now that we have done this, if I click 7, you see in 1 is working. Oh, we missed the second condition, so we just missed the second condition. So because we missed the second condition, it's not taking a second value to in 1. Let's go ahead and add condition 2. So you want to make sure you don't miss anything. So if I click now, you see it's working as it should. Let's clear the calculator, and let's create another function for logic 2 that will handle the input 2. Let's make a block, and let's call it calculate in 2. And we're just going to go ahead and create all the parameters we need. So condition 1, condition 2, this will be in 2, and we have costume name. So you can call these names whatever you want, but it's good to use a meaningful name that helps you identify the value that's supposed to pass into the function. I'm going to click OK. So we're going to define this also. Let's define it at the top here. I know this is a very big code, and then we have to take this second logic. We're going to drag it slowly and attach it here. Then we are going to take the second function, and we are going to call both of the functions. Remember, since we are using an if statement here, the function will run, both functions will run, but the logic inside the if statement will not run if the conditions are not true. Alright, so let's take condition 1 and put it in here. Let's take condition 2 in here, input 2 in here, and costume name in here. Now we need to pass those parameters. Condition 1, condition 2. Let's take this costume name back, and I'll scroll to the side a bit. Costume name in 2 and costume name. So let's see if this works. So I'm going to say 7, 7. Now if I click on plus and say 8, you see it's working, but we are not calling this function for 8. 8 has its own logic, so we are going to try to call this function for 8. Let's delete this logic we have here. We no longer need it because we have defined our recipe here. Now we can use this recipe on any of the number sprites to get our calculation right. Let's clear it. But notice that when I go back to 7, you see the functions we have created. But if I go to 8, the functions will disappear. The reason is because a function is specific to a particular sprite. So how are we going to do this? If we are going to call or create a function for each of these sprites, that's just more repetition. It would have been best to leave the code the way it was. So how are we going to do this? We are going to create a global event to call that function. So let's go to events and let's click on broadcast message, new message, and we are going to call this message calculate. Click OK. So we are going to take when the sprite is clicked. When the sprite is clicked, what do we want to do? We want to broadcast calculate. That's what we want to do. That's just what we are going to do. When the sprite is clicked, we want to broadcast calculate. So let's click on it and see if it works. So it's not working because we need to now use this event while broadcasting to call the function. Let's go back to 7, and instead of saying when this sprite is clicked, we are going to detach this and take when I receive, and the event we want to receive is calculate. All right. So if I click on it, you see we are getting 7. When I click on it, we are getting 7. Let's clear. If I click on 7, we're not getting anything. The reason is because we are not broadcasting this calculate. So let's put this when sprite clicked here and let's broadcast calculate, because we're using this event now to call the function. If I click on 7 now, it works. But if I say 8, we keep on getting 7. The reason is because this costume name is not changing. We need a way to make the costume name dynamic. So to do that, we are going to go to variables and let's create a new variable and call it costume name. Let's call it costume name, and I'm going to leave it for all sprites and click OK. All right, so let's go back to it, and what we want to do is that we are going to set this costume name variable before broadcasting the calculate event to costume name, because this costume name is going to be for each sprite. So let's take costume number and we can change the number to name. I'm going to clear this. Now if I click on it, we are saying set costume name to costume name. If I click on it, we keep on getting 7. All right, so let's fix that. Clear. Let's go back to 7. Now we don't need to accept costume name from our block. We need the costume name variable we just created. So let's remove this costume name, the actual costume name. Let's remove it and let's put the variable we just created here. Because if I maximize the stage and you look at the top, even though we clicked 8 and got 7, the costume name is actually set to 8. Let's go back to small stage and let's click 8. I'm actually going to make this bigger so you can see it. So 8 is working, 7 is also working, 7 is not working. So we're also going to fix that. Let's clear and let's try 7 first. We are getting 8. So let's go back to 8 and let's see why we are getting that. So we're saying set costume name to costume name and calculate and broadcast calculate. So if we go here, we are receiving calculate and we are accepting costume name here, and right here we're passing costume name. We have to check if we're doing everything correctly. Also passing costume name here, but if we click 7, we get 8. All right, so the way we are going to fix this is that we are going to also set the costume name to 7 for this sprite. That's what we are doing here, that is making it to work. So we are going to go to 7 and say set costume name, and let's go to looks and take the costume name. So change this number to name. So if I clear and if I click 7 and 8, so you see it's working now. So all we need to do is to repeat this code for the other numbers. So if I go to 9, I just need to remove these 2. We no longer need it, and copy this one here to 9. I know we are still repeating code a bit, but it's much better than repeating all of this, right? So I'm going to make the stage smaller and let's just copy this over. So I'm going to clear my calculator to have this for 9. Let's go to 4. I'm going to fit this to screen and just clear all of this. Clear all of this. Go to 9 and copy this to 4. Go to 5. Fit screen to see all the codes and clear. Go to 4 and drag this in. So now I have this for 5. I'm just going to repeat this for all. Right. Let's go to have this event here. Let's go to 5. Drag this in to 6. Just have some few more to go for the numbers. Go to 6. Go to 3. And let's remove this. Remove this. And let's copy. And we just have 0 to go. So go to 0. Fit. Remove. Remove. Let's go to 3 and copy this in. If I go to 0, we have it. So now let's test this calculator. And we're going to say 7, 8 plus 90. And it's working. Alright, so one more thing we want to do. If I go to the clear button, when we are resetting this calculator, we also need to reset the value of costume name. So I'm going to go to variables and say set costume name. I don't want to set it to 0. I'm going to set it to nothing. I want nothing to be in there. So when I click, it clears everything. I don't want to show costume name there, so I'm going to uncheck. Alright, there are some other refactoring that you can do with functions. For example, if I go to the operators, you can see we are repeating the same code. It's this to the screen so you can see it. You can see we are repeating the same code, but I'm not going to do that. I'm going to leave that for you to use it as an opportunity to practice. So I want you to refactor this. Just try it, and if you get it right, congratulations. If you don't get it right, keep on trying till you get it. So let's look at the key takeaways of what we need to remember about this lesson. A function is a block of reusable code that performs a specific task. We use functions to avoid code repetition. Functions make our code cleaner, easier to read, and easier to fix. And refactoring is the process of improving our code structure without changing what the code does. In the next video, we are going to lay the foundation of building our car game, and we are going to be using functions more in that video. You don't want to miss it. See you there.